I've just got back from one of the little streams in the park where I've been filming a fishing lair underwater. The lair's a shad I made at the end of last year, and I wasn't really happy with the action. It kind of vibrated more than anything, and I was looking for something with a bit of a kind of thud and a wobble. So for some of the shads I had left, I've cut the tail off and made a new one and stuck it on with a bit of heat. So far the footage looks really good, but I'm going to come back to this later. In the meantime, I'm going to let you check out the how-to part of the video. That is how I made this tail and fixed it. To make the original lures, I carved the shape out of balsa wood and then gave it a few coats of 5-minute epoxy for a smooth finish. From there, I made a simple one-piece injection mould from silicone, and using heated soft plastic liquid and a touch of colour, I quickly turned out some lures. For those interested, I'll post links below to the 2 videos that cover that build in more depth. To give me a bit of a head start on the new tail, I thought I'd use the mould I already had to make a copy of the original tail and work from that. But rather than inject soft plastic again, I closed up that injection point with some plasticine and mixed up a small batch of polyurethane resin. This is the kind of stuff normally used for making things like skateboard wheels. It's relatively cheap and easy to work with. It also has a fast cure time, which is normally only a few minutes. After demoulding, I trimmed up the tail on the bandsaw and then hot glued it to a piece of wood so I could get in closer and really take out the bits that I didn't need. For the new design, I went back to the original CAD drawing and just expanded the footprint of the tail, making it look something like a Colorado blade. I could then print a template and stick it to a piece of thin plastic sheet, which was easy enough to cut out with scissors. With some double-sided tape, I stuck this into place on the back of what was left of the original tail. To create the new shape, I mixed up some epoxy putty. This is Milliput, which is normally used for repairing sinks or plumbing. It starts out as a bit of a sticky mess, and I kind of lumped it on and really just pressed and pushed it into shape. One of its advantages is that you can use water to smooth it out before it cures. On the downside, that curing time normally takes about 12 hours or more. Once cured, I flattened the back off with some fine wet and dry paper and then cleaned the rest of the tail with some paper wrapped around a piece of plastic pipe. To take a mould from the tail, I stuck it down on some scrap plastic and made a mould box from a strip of the same taped together. Once weighted down, I glued it into place with a mess of hot glue. For the mould material, I mixed up a small batch of silicone, the same stuff I'd used for the injection mould, and then poured it into the box in a thin stream to help burst any trapped air. Then it was another 12-hour waiting game. To pour the new tails, I used some leftover soft plastic from other projects and remelted it in the microwave. When it was ready, it was just a case of filling the mould with a steady hand, then leaving it a few minutes to cool before popping out the new tail. To fix it to the body, I cut off the old tail as cleanly as possible and then checked to see if the new piece matched. To set that joint, I heated up a butter knife with a blow lamp and just gave it a go. What I was looking for was to melt both sides and then slide them together. It didn't really work on the first attempt, so I gave it a bit more heat and tried again. Both sides need to melt a little, and then bringing them together quickly should mean they form one piece of plastic again. I'm not sure this is ever perfect, but I reckon I get about 90% of the strength once the plastic's cooled. I used up some more of the junk plastic and made a few different colours, and also added some stripes with permanent markers. To rig them, I used some very large jig heads. These are 6/0, but they only have an 8-gram weight to them. Then it was off to do the testing. So I've had a good chance to go through the footage now, and that tail's made a huge difference. When I look at the original and kind of compare the video, I think I really got what I was after, to be honest, something that's really going to kick up some action at slow speed. And that's really because this time of year I always find the pike are just lazy basically, and the kind of longer you can stick it in the face and annoy them, the better. To get this little bit of video, I used a GoPro and a rig that I made in a separate video, which is basically a lot of bits of plumbing pipes stuck together. I'll post a link to that below. Like a lot of my projects, I tend to kind of drag them out, and this isn't the finished stage for this. I'm gonna sculpt some details onto a master, obviously add that new tail, and make a new mold and make some hopefully finished layers this time. But I really need to take this out and stick it in front of some live fish and get their opinion. I did manage to get out a couple of days later for a windy afternoon session and find a couple of small pike by bouncing the layers just off the bottom. This is probably the best kind of approval for any fishing layer. Thanks for watching.